Hi, everyone. Welcome. I see more people are joining, so we're going to get started in about a minute. Okay, let's get started and we'll try to add people as they join. Okay, so hi, everyone. My name is Tanya Rosen. Just a little bit of an introduction. So I'm the owner of Nutrition by Tanya, and I'm a nutritionist, and this is an emotional eating workshop. The goal of this workshop is just to give you a little bit of like an insight into what emotional eating is, give you some practical tools, answer some questions that were submitted in advance, as well as open it up to any questions that come up in this Zoom, which I just ask that you save for the end, and then tell you about how you can continue further, whether it's one-on-one or in a group setting, which we have, not a group setting, sorry, in an online course, which we have both options available. So a little bit of an introduction. So I've been a nutritionist for almost 20 years. Actually, it's very appropriate the Zoom is tonight because it is my son's 20th birthday, and he was the reason, he was my first child, and he is the reason I gained 50 pounds in that pregnancy. And in the process of losing the weight, I started really liking eating healthy and exercising, lost 50 pounds, switched from law school to nutrition, and the rest is history. So how did I get into emotional eating work when, I'm a nutritionist and I tell people what to eat? Very soon after I became a nutritionist, I realized that it's just not enough to tell people what to eat. There's also reasons why people eat. So like, it's not, you can't just tell people eat this, and you will lose this, and this, unless you also understand the reasons behind why people eat or why people don't stick to the food plan that you give them. So I got very interested in the why people eat and the motivations behind it and the psychology behind it. So I ended up taking a lot of different courses on emotional eating. I also ended up being certified as a life coach. I've also given many workshops on emotional eating, both one-on-one in a group. To date, I've worked with probably close to 1,000 people on emotional eating, whether one-on-one or in a group. So I feel like this is my, other than nutrition, like this is really my passion because it's something that's not addressed enough. And if it's not addressed, no matter what kind of diet someone is, it doesn't matter if it's keto, if it's intermittent fasting, if it's carbs, no carbs, whatever it is, whatever diet you decide you want to do or whatever it is, if you don't figure out your whys and you don't figure out the reasons for why you eat when you know you shouldn't be eating, no diet is ever going to work. And even if you're not on a diet, but you're just eating, out of control or eating mindlessly, that probably bothers you. So it's good to understand yourself. So for those just joining, just like a little recap, we're going to go through like the basics of emotional eating just to understand it better. I'm going to answer questions that I got in advance, and then I'll leave it open for everyone to ask questions that come up. I just ask that you save them for the end. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, so first of all, what is emotional eating? Okay, so emotional eating is eating for any other reason other than the fact that you need to eat either to fuel yourself, to give yourself energy, whether it's mealtime or snack time, or because you're hungry, right? You're allowed to eat when it's not mealtime. It's okay to honor your hunger. But emotional eating is eating for any other reason other than a physical need to eat. So it could be boredom. There's an acronym for it. It's HALT, which is hungry, which we said. Then there's angry, lonely, tired. HALT. Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired. Okay. So that's the official like explanation of why, different reasons why we eat. And then I added to it, which is I added B for boredom. I added S for stress. And then I added F for foodie. Okay. So what's boredom? boredom comes in two forms. Either we're bored, like, oh, I'm so bored, I have nothing to do. But these days, most people are not bored. Like there's always something to do, right? So there's another kind of boredom, which is mental boredom. Like your mind is not occupied by anything, or you're very busy with your kids, um, but you're not mentally stimulated. Okay. So that's another kind of boredom. Like I have a client that has a job that is not the most mentally stimulating job in the world. You know, it pays the bills. It's good. It's convenient hours. It allows her to be a single mom that's there for her kids, but it's not the most mentally stimulating job. So she found that when she's at work, she's looking for food, not because she's bored. She has what to do at work, but just because she's not mentally stimulated. So that's an example of bored. Stressed, obviously we know what stress means. So stress also leads to emotional eating. And foodie. Foodie is today's generation where we eat simply because, like, you know, it's Insta worthy to put this picture on Instagram, or we made something and we want to showcase it, or we're going to try out a new restaurant even after we eat dinner just because that's what everyone's doing. So that's another category, which is more like in the last like 10 years or so, like let's say more than 10 years ago, people did not take pictures of food when they went out to eat. Okay. For those of you who are very young, that might be shocking, but people actually did not take pictures and post them on social media. That's like probably like in the last 10 years. So that's a little bit of like a definition of like a quick overview of what it is. Okay. Now we know what it is. Okay. Now, why does it bother us? Right. Okay. So I ate when I shouldn't be eating. Why does it bother us? So the reason it bothers people is for a few reasons. The main reason is for vanity reasons, right? There are plenty of other addictions that people have that don't have consequences that are visible to the world, right? If someone drinks too much, unless he acts, I'm sorry to say he, I know a woman could also get drunk, but let's just generalize for a second. If a man drinks too much, unless he's acting embarrassing at a kiddish, it's not going to show on him, right? If someone gambles, unless he loses his house and his job and everybody's talking about it, it's not going to show on him, right? If someone is a smoker, unless he has bad breath or his clothing smells like smoke, it's not going to show, right? When we overeat, unless you're one of the very few lucky people in the world that don't gain weight from it, most people do gain weight, right? Myself included, right? So most people do gain weight. So if there would be no consequences, right, we wouldn't gain weight from emotional eating, it probably would not bother us as much. But most people do gain weight from emotional eating. And therefore, the consequence is that they don't like their new weight, their clothing is tight, they don't love the way they look, and that's why it bothers them. Another reason, okay, which I'm not going to like sugarcoat it, right, so to speak. I'm going to tell you straight up that vanity is the biggest reason. But a second reason why it bothers people is because it does not feel good to be out of control, right? It doesn't feel good not to be in control of what you decide to put in your mouth. Like you want to be in charge of your food versus feeling like your food is in charge of you, okay? And then a third reason, which most people don't even think about until they start thinking deeper into it, is that it's not even possible to make proper brachos, right? When you are emotional eating, because you're supposed to not have food in your mouth when you make the next bracha, right? You're supposed to hold the food in your right hand. You're supposed to know when you started, if you finished, right? Like, did you have that next? Like you were eating chocolate, which is shahakol, but then you had ices, which is shahakol. Did you have it in mind? Did you not have it in mind? Did you make a bracha achrona after the mazonos, right? One of the biggest feedbacks I get from people who conquer emotional eating is that besides the vanity part and in control part is that they're able to actually finally make proper brachos and they feel like very like menschlich with their food. So those are just a few reasons why it bothers us. I want to tell you some common misconceptions about it. So one very common misconception is that if you are an emotional eater, you are alone, you are unique, other people don't have this issue, okay? First of all, over 100 people registered for this Zoom, okay? There's almost 60 people on right now, but over 100 people registered for the Zoom, and that's just people that saw it promoted, right? Now, think about how many people did not even see it promoted or didn't register for the Zoom, right? Emotional eating is a very, very, very common issue, okay? You are not unique. Sorry, no offense. I'm sure you're unique in other ways, but you are not unique in your emotional eating. It is something that many people struggle with. Men and women alike struggle with emotional eating. And I'll tell you why women more, but men and women both struggle with emotional eating. The reason it's so common is because, as opposed to other addictions, we need food to live, right? So if you think about it, when someone stops gambling or smoking or alcohol or anything like that, they could technically stay away from it. Don't go to the casino, don't buy alcohol, don't buy cigarettes, don't hang out with your friends that drink or smoke, right? If you stop being an emotional eater, you're always around food, right? Especially if you're a woman serving your kids food, cooking, whatever, you're always around food. So there's no way that you could like get off of food. There's no such thing, right? You need food to live. Okay, that's number one. Number two is that this is an addiction that's, in comparison to other addictions, very, very cheap. It's cheaper than buying a pack of cigarettes. It's cheaper than buying drugs. It's cheaper than gambling, right? It's a cheap addiction and it's so easily available, right? Also, other addictions take time to feel good, right? Especially as you get used to it. With food, it's instant. It enters your mouth. It feels good, right? The crunching feels good. All the sensations with food feel good. Everything feels good. It's almost instant gratification. So that's why it's very common. Okay. I'll tell you why women versus men are more likely to be emotional eaters for a few reasons. One is that women in general are more in tune with their feelings. So they're more likely to admit that they are an emotional eater and seek help or even realize that they're an emotional eater. A man will just say something like, oh, I eat too much, I fress, right? Also, men have other socially acceptable outlets for their stress or whatever it is. Like if you saw a man standing outside his house, pacing back and forth on the phone, smoking cigarette after cigarette, you wouldn't really like judge him. Like, okay, he's smoking a cigarette, right? Imagine seeing a frum woman on the phone, pacing outside her house, smoking cigarettes. You'd be like, oh my God, she was smoking cigarettes, right? Okay. A man could also have a nice couple of beers, some alcohol, right? At a shul kiddush or whatever it is. And that's looked upon as normal, right? A woman's not going to do that. I mean, she could, but she will definitely be judged and looked at weird. Okay. So that's for these reasons, definitely women are more likely to be emotional eaters than men, but that's not to say that men cannot be emotional eaters. I've worked with many men on their emotional eating. Another common misconception is that if you are an emotional eater, you are a wreck. Something is wrong with you. You're just a wreck. Okay. I take high offense when someone says this. I once had someone, a friend, she meant well. She didn't mean anything bad by it, but she said to me, oh, you're giving all these emotional eating courses and one-on-one emotional eating work. These people must be like a wreck, right? They must have like nothing in their life is together. I said, that's absolutely not true. Okay. Most of the people that I've worked with on emotional eating are actually really, really, really put together in every other area in their life. Nothing else is in need of assistance necessarily, right? Like their houses are organized, their kids are taken care of, they go to work, they go to school, they handle their responsibilities. This is the one area where they struggle with. So if you're an emotional eater, it does not mean that other things are wrong with you at all, okay? It could be that everything else in your life is perfectly fine, and this is the one area that you struggle with. Another common misconception with emotional eating is that if you are an emotional eater, the only way to deal with this and to get better is to go for therapy. Okay. Now, that is absolutely not true. Okay. So I'll tell you my take on it. I want to clarify something. I'm a big believer in therapy. Okay. I've personally gone for therapy. I'm a big believer in therapy. I think many people could use therapy. But when it comes to emotional eating, I haven't found that therapists necessarily understand emotional eating well. They start to go into your past, like what happened when you were a kid, how did your mother treat your emotional eating? And it's such a lengthy, drawn out process that people get discouraged because it starts taking a lot of time and a lot of money. People get discouraged and it's just not necessary. Okay. When I work with people on emotional eating, I do it as a 6-week program. Okay. So it's 6 weeks. It could be done as an online course. It could be done one-on-one. And in 6 weeks is more than enough time to figure out what the reasons are and how we could work on them. Okay. Of course, it's work for life, but therapy is just not necessary when it comes to this. Okay. Another common misconception is that emotional eating is always emotional. Okay. I know. How could emotional eating be not emotional? The word emotional is in emotional eating. But believe it or not, and this is good news, many people who think they're emotional eaters actually just need like a physical change. Okay. What do I mean by that? Okay. I'll give you one of my favorite analogies, which will explain this. Okay. So you're talking to your friend and you're telling your friend that every single time you walk on Avenue J and East 17th to go to Touro College, you trip on that block and you fall and you're such a klutz and you're so mad at yourself and something is wrong with you. And how come other people walk and don't fall and you always fall? And like, what is wrong with you? And you're such a klutz and you're a loser and you're a lost cause. And she tells you, wait, did you just say Avenue J and East 17th? And you're like, yeah, I said Avenue J and East 17th. And then your friend tells you, you're so funny. There's a tree branch there that fell. Okay. And anyone that walks by that tree branch, it's impossible to see. And the government just has not cleaned it up. And anyone that walks by that tree branch always trips and falls. That's just what happens. It's not your fault. Why don't you try tomorrow walking on Avenue J and East 18th? I know it's going to take an extra minute. Try it. And I promise you, you'll see you'll get to Touro College without falling. You're like, okay, she's crazy, but let me try it. So you walk on Avenue J and East 18th and you don't fall and you get to Touro College and you're like, oh, it wasn't me. It was where I was walking. Okay. So where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is that a lot of people think they're emotional eaters because the physical circumstances in their lives are not allowing them to be otherwise. Okay. So the two most common physical circumstances in one's life that prevent them from being not an emotional eater or whatever they think is an emotional eater, number one is sleep. And number two is high glycemic index foods. Okay. So let's talk about each one. Sleep. Why is it important to get sleep? Okay. Physically, okay, your body, okay, let's leave the physically. Think about this scenario. There's a piece of cake on your counter, right? You made a delicious cake for Shabbos. It's Monday right now. It's in that cake stand on the counter, right? You walked by it on Shabbos. You were like, I'm good. I don't need it. You walked by it on Sunday. I'm good. I don't need it. You walked by it on Monday. Then Monday night, you were up half the night. You didn't get sleep. Tuesday, all day long, that cake is screaming your name. It's like telling you, eat me, eat me, eat me. And you're like, I don't get it. On Shabbos, it was fresh. I was fine. On Sunday, it was fresh. I was fine. Monday, I was even hungry and I made myself a salad and took chicken and I was fine. Why is it calling my name now when it's 4 days old? The reason it's calling your name is because you are exhausted. And when you're tired, it's impossible to make good decisions. When you're tired, your brain is not properly working and your brain is not able to tell you, hey, wait, you don't need that, right? Pause, stop, think. You just can't think straight, right? You know, people get into arguments and make bad decisions when they're tired, right? Like you're not supposed to even make important decisions when you're tired, when you're exhausted. So this is no different. It's very hard to think clearly and say no when you are exhausted. Okay, that's number one. The second thing is high glycemic index foods. Okay, what does that mean? When you look at a food package, all you see is calories, fat, sugar, carbs. Something that's not listed ever is glycemic index. Glycemic index is a measurement of how slowly or quickly your blood sugar will spike when you eat that food. Okay. So it's not listed on the food, but you can look it up. There's glycemic index charts. So anything that's high, you could try to stay away from. Middle, have sometimes, and low is not an issue. I'll give you an example of a food that you would never guess is a high glycemic index food, rice cakes, right? Everyone thinks of rice cakes as a diet food because they're low calorie. True, they are, right? But when someone eats rice cakes, their blood sugar will spike and then they're going to start being hungry and then they're going to start having cravings and they won't even know why. Okay. So it's just like my tree branch analogy on Avenue J. So the more high glycemic index foods are in your pantry right now, in your pantry, in your cabinet, in your refrigerator, whatever, the more of those foods you eat, especially earlier in the day versus later, the more your blood sugar will keep spiking, the more your cravings will go up, and the more you will constantly be hungry and not know why. So the number one thing to do, if you want to give yourself the best possible chance and see if it's just a physical issue versus emotional, is to look at a glycemic index chart and choose foods that are not on the high glycemic index, okay? So getting enough sleep and low glycemic index foods. The reason physical is easier to fix than emotional is because think about this. If your kid comes home bleeding, right? Gushing blood, it's scary, it's horrible, but like you're going to stop the bleeding. You're going to put a Band-Aid, you're going to stop the bleeding. That's it. If it happens again, you'll figure out why he keeps getting hurt in school and you'll make sure it doesn't happen. But if your kid comes home and there's a bully in school, right? If there's a bully in school or a mean teacher, that's much harder to deal with, okay? Physical is almost always easier to fix than emotional, okay? So a lot of times when I discover that someone is actually not an emotional eater, right? It's great news. It means that it's so much easier to fix the issue than if you are an emotional eater, okay? Don't worry, emotional eating is fixable too, but just make sure it's not physical first, okay? Another common misconception is that I have no self-control. It's not up to me. It's like people literally describe it to me like they don't even know what happened. Like they weren't there. Like it wasn't up to them. They have no idea what just happened. They have no control over the food. Okay. So here's my answer to this. Okay. Picture this scenario, which I learned on when I took the Judith Beck course for emotional eating. By the way, best book ever, Judith Beck, CBT for emotional eaters, cognitive behavior therapy for emotional eaters. So this was her direct example and I love it, okay? Picture this, you're sitting on a couch watching TV, okay? Sorry for those who don't watch TV, just follow along with this example, okay? And in front of you, there's a tray, there's a bucket of popcorn, and there's a tray with extra batteries for the remote, right? And you're engrossed in your movie. You're like so focused on this movie, right? And you're laughing and you're like into the movie and you want to reach for popcorn, but by mistake, you grab a battery in your hand and you put it in your mouth. Do you eat it? No, right? Of course not, because you realize it's a battery, right? So she used this as an example of why even when it feels like we have absolutely no control and our brain is not even there, it's always there. Now, to take it further, as Jews, have you ever by accident put something in your mouth on a fast day? Or let's say you're fleischiks and you put something milchiks in your mouth by mistake? You might have put it in your mouth by mistake, but you right away spit it out, right? So as Jews, we have even more control than the average person who just wouldn't eat a battery, okay? So that's another common misconception. Okay, now I'm gonna talk about the ABC model. So the ABC model was developed by Robert Ellis, which was a very famous psychologist. And ABC stands for A is activating event, B is belief, and C is consequence. So basically, the premise is that every emotional eating episode has a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? So let's give an example. Okay, so A, activating event, okay? I had a stressful day at work, right? That's my A, that's my activating event. My B, my belief is when I get home, I deserve to eat whatever the heck I want. Anything I see that's not tied down or glued down or frozen right now at the moment, I deserve to eat that. And then C is the consequence. I eat all that, I feel gross, I regret it, etc. Okay. So the premise behind this whole theory is that we can never change the A, hardly ever. Sometimes we could, but hardly ever, usually not. We can't change the A, right? So what we could change is the B, which is our belief, and in turn, we'll change the C, which is the consequence. So let's go back to my example, A, activating event, okay? I had a stressful day at work. So now I'm going to change my belief from I deserve to eat whatever the heck I want to, you know what? I usually eat whatever I want, but I want to try something different. I'm going to relax. I'm going to take a bath or read a good book or watch a good movie and then see the consequence changes. I don't feel gross. I feel taken care of. I feel good. Okay. So everyone has ABCs, right? And you'll notice as you pay attention to it that your A's are going to be pretty common. Most of your A's are going to be similar. Nobody has like 10 A's, right? It's usually the same thing, either stressful bedtime, hard day at work, deadlines, someone said something to you that hurt you, whatever it is, right? Your A's are going to be pretty similar. You're not going to have more than 5 to 10 A's. You're going to realize that by working on your B's, on your beliefs, you can therefore in turn change the consequences. Okay. So A's is usually an activating event, but it could even be a person. Okay. Like I'll give you an example. I have a friend that's married like 25 years, and she still to this day blames her husband for gaining 80 pounds after she got married because he loves food and he loves to go out to eat and whatever. So one day I said to her, like, I was kind of joking, not joking. I said, "Are you planning to switch husbands?" And she said, "No, of course not." I said, "So then maybe you need to switch your perspective on this, right? Like your husband's always going to be your husband. So that's not changing. So what needs to change is your belief about it." Now, this is not easy. I'm making it sound very easy. Like 1, 2, 3, just change your belief and live happily ever after. It's not easy. You have to constantly do it again and again and again and again. But the good news is that after a couple of times, you basically rewrote your script. That's what you did. You had a script that you always followed subconsciously, and then you chose to rewrite your script and you practice that over and over and over and over and over. And then it becomes second nature. Your new script becomes totally what your new way of being is. Okay. So that's the ABC model. Next, I want to talk about the what else list. Okay. So the what else list is like this. Basically, I always tell my clients to make a list of what they could do instead of eating. Now, you can't start thinking about this in the moment. You need to do it in advance. Now, the list gets divided into a few categories. If I have 5 minutes, if I have 15 minutes, if I have an hour, if I have a few hours, right? Because what you could do in 5 minutes is very different than what you could do in 3 hours, right? Like, for example, if you tell me you want to go for a hike, that's great, but you're not going to do that if you only have 15 minutes. But that's great for your 3-hour list, right? Or if you tell me that running around the block helps you, that's perfect for 5 minutes, right? Or a puzzle is perfect for 30 minutes. Whatever it is can be broken down into the category. Now, take it even further. Sometimes what we need is relaxation. We're very tense. We had a tense day. We were like on deadlines. We were running around, everything, this doctor's appointment, that doctor's appointment, the dentist, back to school shopping. What we need is relaxation, right? We need to relax. So in that case, there's a relax category, like take a bath, listen to nice music, right? Watch something that relaxes you, right? But then there is another category, which is very interesting. Sometimes relaxing is not what we need, right? Sometimes we have nervous energy, right? Like someone really, really bothered us, or someone said something to us and it's, like it's irking you inside. The last thing you need right now is to relax. You actually want to do something with your nervous energy. So in that category, there's cleaning. Believe it or not, some people find cleaning therapeutic. Cleaning, decluttering, jumping jacks, running up and down the stairs, running around the block, organizing, right? So you have to ask yourself, am I looking to relax or am I looking to do something with that nervous energy? Okay. And then there's another category, which is the tune out category. When you want, a lot of times when we eat, it's to just numb our feelings or to shut up our feelings. They're uncomfortable. We don't like it. Our feelings are not sitting well with us. We want to numb them. So we use food to numb our feelings, which anybody here who has tried it knows it doesn't really work for more than 20 seconds. So other ways to numb your feelings are to tune out in other ways. You could listen to an interesting podcast. You could watch a movie. You can go online shopping, right? Now, online shopping, I'll just tell you a quick thing about it. Yes, I know online shopping is not a healthy addiction, and I'm not saying you should get addicted to it. But first of all, you could always return what you got, okay? As opposed to food, which you cannot. Second of all, if you do choose to keep it, you'll enjoy wearing it again and again and again versus food, which you enjoy one time and that's it. Okay. And third of all, you don't even have to buy anything. You could just shop just to tune out, put things in cart, don't buy them, right? Just to tune out. So to sum it up, there's 3 categories. There's the I need to relax. There's the I need to do something with my nervous energy. And there's the I need to tune out. Those are the 3 categories on the what else list. And then there's the I have 5 minutes, I have 15 minutes, I have 30 minutes, I have hours, right? So if you want to really do this the right way, you would literally take a paper and a pen or type it if you prefer typing and write out these categories and ideas for each one. And then you have it in your back pocket, so to speak. And whatever scenario hits, ask yourself, what is it that I really need, right? Because automatically our mind goes to, oh, I need food. No, what is it that I really need? Okay. You just think that food is the only answer, but what is it that I really need? how much time do I have and what can I do with that time? Okay. And again, it's not as easy as it sounds. It's practicing it over and over and over. Okay. A lot of things that we do are habitual, right? I would even add that as a category. Like we do them just because we're used to doing them. For example, okay, like I'll give you a funny story. My client always, when she would put her kids to sleep, she would like it was like almost like automatic. She was on autopilot. Kids are finally sleeping, cabinets, fridge, party, Nash party, and then again, same cycle, regret, right? So then when she was doing construction on her house and they couldn't afford to move into their own house, they moved in with her mother-in-law. Okay. So she was not going to do that in front of her mother-in-law. So for 6 months, she would put her kids to sleep and she had nowhere to have this Nash party. Guess what happened? You think she came home and continued her old ways? No, she was deconditioned, right? It was literally like if anyone knows that the Pavlov dog experiment, where they would salivate just from the ringing the bell that they associated with food. We have so many things we do like that. I'll give you another example. I have a client that grew up in a family that whenever you got into the car for more than 10 minutes, snacks came out. Chips, popcorn, candies, especially on very long trips. She married a guy, right? Because it always works out this way, that his family never allowed eating in the car. There's no such thing as eating in the car. So when they first got married and they went on their first long trip to visit his family in Muncie from Brooklyn, and she started pulling out snacks and he was like, what are you doing? And she's like, snacks. And he's like, no. So anyway, first she was upset and then she's like, fine. Okay. I'm a new kala. I want shalom bayis, right? So she learned a different way because she disassociated with her old ways. So we all have that, right? Think about the things that you do, it's not even necessarily emotional eating. It's just association. You associate certain things with certain foods. And all you have to do is be aware of it and disassociate. Okay, next, I want to talk about the delay method. Okay, so the delay method is something that I talk about a lot. And out of all the things that I ever post or talk about, this is the one I get the most feedback on. I even have sometimes people stop me on the street and they're like, you don't know me. I follow your WhatsApp status. And I once saw your delay method and it's been so helpful. And I just want to tell you, okay, so I'll explain the delay method to you. Okay. Basically, think of a toddler, right? You picked up your toddler from playgroup, right? And you come home and the toddler starts having a tantrum, right? I want candy now, right? So if you say no, that's the responsible thing to do as a mother. You're not going to give him candy right now, but the tantrum just gets worse. If you say yes, your life may be easier for the moment, but really you're just spoiling him and maybe giving him cavities and maybe he's going to be crazy, whatever. So you can't say yes either. So what are you supposed to do? You're not going to say yes and you're not going to say no. So what are you supposed to do, right? So the best way, this works amazingly with toddlers and with ourselves as adults, is you say soon, okay? But you can't just say soon. You have to distract them. So you say, okay, you could validate them. Okay, I know you really want candy. Okay, you know what? We're going to go call Bubby and we're going to go take a bath. And when we're done with Bubby and the bath, if you still want the candy, no problem, right? What happens 99.999% of the time? They forget, okay? They got distracted and they forget. So I'm sorry to say this, but this is the truth. We are all grown up toddlers, okay? We may be adult size. We may have adult responsibilities. But when it comes to this, we are literally toddlers, okay? You're on a diet and you want chocolate, okay? So you literally, like, you can't necessarily throw yourself on the floor and kick and scream, but you're like, I want chocolate, but I want chocolate. And then you have to start like rationalizing with yourself. Be nice to yourself, self-care, self-love, give yourself the chocolate. But no, I'm supposed to be disciplined and teach myself discipline. So what am I supposed to do, right? So instead of having this battle of yes versus no, you could delay. Okay, so in an adult world, it's not call Bubby and take a bath, but okay, maybe it could be take a bath, or maybe it could be call Bubby. But in an adult world, it would be like, let me go, I don't know what, pay the bills I've been waiting to pay, or go take a bath, or go make a phone call about that shit off that I'm supposed to get back to. And if I still want it, I will have it after. 99.999% of the time, you will not want it. And even if you do, the urgency will be so much lower. Okay. There's a story in the Torah. I don't know the source. I'm sorry. But a man that used to beat up his kids with a belt would came to a big rabbi and said, I know it's not nice. I hit my kids. What should I do? And the rabbi told him, you could still hit your kids, but I want you to wear a lot of layers over your clothing and over your belts, a jacket, another jacket, a shirt, another belt, whatever. Why? Because this way, when the man got angry, it took time until he took off one layer and another layer, another layer. By the time he got to that belt, his anger had already subsided. Okay. So that's what we want to do. We want the urgency to go away. Okay. Have you ever wanted to say a really juicy piece of gossip, lashon hara, to someone, right? So maybe you got busy, right? Not even on purpose. You got busy. You meant to call your sister to tell her something, but your kids needed you. You forgot. 3 hours goes by. And by the time you call your sister, you might say to yourself, hey, it's not worth it. It's okay. It's not urgent anymore, right? So the longer we wait, the less of an urgency there is, and we become in control versus the food being in control. Okay, so that's the delay method. Okay. Okay, I have a lot of questions that I got in advance. So I'm thinking if I should do that first or if we'll take questions first. Okay, let me take a few questions first and then I'll get to these questions. So go for it. What are your questions? Let's hear. You could type it if you don't want to say it, you could type it in the chat box as well. Come on, there's 62 people here. Okay, I see a question. Can you define what is emotional eating? So I did in the beginning, you might have missed it, but it's eating for any other reason other than hunger or it's time to eat. So boredom, stress, loneliness, needing stimulation, etc. Okay, anyone else before I move on to pre-asked questions? No, going once, going twice. Everyone's very shy. Okay. Remember, everyone's here for the same topic, so no one's judging you and there's no such thing as a bad question. So, okay, so here are some questions that I got. Hold on, let's go to this. Okay. Okay, this is an interesting question. Is something wrong with just loving food? Does that mean I have a problem? Great question. No, nothing is wrong with loving food, okay? And if the consequences of what you do about your love for food don't bother you, then no problem, right? Like if either you don't gain weight or you have no issue with overeating, no problem. But like I said earlier, usually there are consequences. So it's like money. If you have unlimited money to spend and you're going to keep spending it and you're not going into debt and you're still paying tuition and you're not borrowing or stealing or whatever, because what the hey, go for it, right? But if there's consequences, if you're going to be in debt, then we have a problem. Okay. Okay, next question is, once someone is cured, is that forever? Okay, also really good question. So just like with anything else in life, if we don't work on something, it's going to come back, right? So to use a silly example, you pick up your sheitel from the sheitel macher. It's nice, it's fresh, it's so good. And then even if it doesn't rain, right? Even if you never get stuck with it in the rain, just from wearing it, you got to give it in again, right? Or you took an amazing, inspiring marriage or parenting course. You got great ideas, right? If you don't do a refresher, it kind of wears off. You're going to forget. So you learn a lot of habits in the emotional eating workshop, but you're going to have to keep practicing them over and over. It's not just going to magically stay on its own. Okay, another good question. I really want to give up emotional eating, but it's my crutch and I can't imagine what it will be like without it. Any advice? So this is a really good question because for some people, this is the only way they know how to cope with their feelings and with their stress. So that's why the what else list is so important. Because yeah, if you give up your only crutch, what are you going to do? Right? But if you have other crutches or other helpful tools, then you're fine. My friend is doing emotional eating with you and says you don't let her talk about weight, true, and encourage her not to go on the scale. How come? Okay, I'll tell you why. When I'm doing emotional eating work with someone, if they focus on weight, they're never going to go through the process the right way. Okay, I'll give you an analogy. When we were doing construction on my house, I'm a woman, right? I don't understand construction. All I wanted was like a certain color on my walls. I was like, I want this color. And then my husband was like, no, first you have to sand it, prime it, prep it, put a base coat. And I was getting so annoyed. I'm like, why? Forget it, skip it. I just want the color. And he was explaining to me, if you just go to the color, it's never going to go and it's never going to last, right? So sometimes when people sign up for emotional eating, they're like, I just want to lose weight. You are not ready to lose weight, okay? Just like my walls were not ready to be painted, right? If you rush the process, nothing will come out of it, right? So I'll give you an example. My client had such a successful first time in like 30 years, she had a successful Shabbos, right? Meaning no binging, no emotional eating, nothing extra. She felt good. She felt in control. She didn't feel deprived. She had one of her best Shabbosim ever. So she got on a scale Sunday morning, which I told her not to do, and she did not lose any weight over Shabbos. So she felt like all her hard work was for nothing. Why? Right? Her hard work was not for nothing. We're building tools, we're building skills. And most people don't lose weight over Shabbos. Why even check? Right? So that's why I really don't bring weight into the emotional eating. If it was up to me, they would throw out their scales and not go on their scales, because we first have to work on the inside before we could work on weight. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Okay, let's find another one. This is a great one. Are all overweight people emotional eaters, and are all thin people not emotional eaters? No, that's a common misconception. Somebody could be overweight and not be an emotional eater. They could just eat too much when they're hungry, right? Maybe they don't have good hunger cues. And somebody could be thin because they get away with it and still be an emotional eater. You don't know based on how someone looks. Okay. I would love to work with you one-on-one for emotional eating, but I can't afford it. Any other options? Yes. So I developed my one-on-one course into an online course. So it's available on workshopsbytanya.com, and it's much cheaper, and it's still a 6-week course, and it's very effective, and you could totally do it as an online course versus one-on-one. I see some questions are here. I have very little self-control. Help. Okay, so that's another thing that we spoke about earlier, that everyone has self-control, especially as Jews, but it could be that what you're perceiving as lack of self-control is just from the high glycemic index foods, which once you cut out, you will just have such better self-control. Okay, and it's also empowering. Like once you have like one successful night, another successful night, like just like they say mitzvah gereres mitzvah, every time you have a successful eating episode or another night, you feel empowered to do it again and again. If food actually does make me feel better, is it okay to eat in moderation? Yeah, it's okay to eat whatever you want to eat, but just remember that in terms of feeling good, the amount of time that it lasts is literally like 20, 30 seconds, a minute, right? It doesn't last very long. I'm a volume eater. How do I control it? Okay. So one great tip for that is to drink a lot of water, okay, especially before a meal, because then you will feel physically full and be less likely to overeat. That's a great tool for that. Also, always sit. Okay, that's a big one with, in general, it's a good idea, but especially with emotional eating, so much of it happens standing. So if you just tell yourself to sit, you will eliminate so much extra eating, and you will eat less in volume also. Okay, let me do one more from the ones I got. Okay, to me, after the kids go to bed, I need to reward myself. How would I do that without food? Okay, so that's what we spoke about earlier with you have your what else list. So whatever it is that makes you, whatever you need, whether you need to relax, tune out, get your out, right? Whichever one you need, that's what you're going to be looking for. And you're going to do that instead. I have a client that has 10 kids. None are married. They all live at home every single day. Okay. This is like amazing. I don't know how she does it. Every single day at 7 p.m., which is crazy time in most houses, right? She goes into her private bathroom, into her private bath, and takes a bath, and they know not to bother her. And when she comes out, she's able to continue dealing with everybody. That's her self-care. I asked her why she doesn't wait until things are settled. She said because they're never settled, and because by then she's too tired. So that's an example. Like, don't wait until everything is, I know that's extreme. I personally would not be able to do that. And I only have 5 kids, but whatever it is that you could do, that relaxes you, that soothes you and soothes you. And sometimes, even if you don't do it in the moment, knowing that you're gonna do it is very, very helpful, because when you know that it's coming up, you could look forward to that. Shandy Schwartz, thank you. Thank you for that. What's the price of one-on-one versus online course? So one-on-one is $5.99 for 6 weeks, and the online course is $2.99. So it's about half the price for the online course. How to deal with overeating over Yom Tiv. Okay, so really same answers as overeating with anything. But one specific tip for Yom Tiv is that there's a lot of family time, and family time is beautiful. And even in best case scenarios, like everyone gets along, there's no drama, you love everybody, you want to see everybody, you need headspace and you need time alone. A lot of times when people emotionally eat is because they just needed a little peace and quiet in their head, right? Everybody's like, mommy this, mommy that, hecticness, people running around. So give yourself little timeouts. Like seriously, walk away for 10 minutes and come back. You'll see your whole perspective changes. Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Going once, going twice. Okay, I just want to finish off with some of my favorite mantras when it comes to emotional eating. So feel free to write them down if you like any of them, but these are great. Basically talk to yourself, right? Like really, I'm very into talking to yourself, and like, and you could talk to yourself out loud, talk to yourself quietly, whatever, but these are some mantras that I love that apply to this. So number one is you never regret what you did not eat. Okay, I'll say it again because it's a good one. You never regret what you did not eat. Plenty of times we regret what we did eat, but no one ever says, oh, I can't believe I didn't eat that. I should have eaten that, right? So just remember that. The next one is, I already know what giving in feels like. I'd like to feel what not giving in feels like, right? Like tell yourself that you want to experience what it's like to not give in, right? You know what it's like to give in. Like, here we go again, same scenario, pizza store with the kids. I'm not gonna eat the fries, I'm not gonna eat the fries. Okay, fine, I'll eat the fries. Okay, I eat the fries, right? You know that scenario so well, you could do it in your sleep, right? Let yourself experience the opposite. What does it feel like not to give in? How will I feel when I walk away from this pizza store and I did not have any fries, right? As an example. Okay, another one is working on my emotional eating is hard. Staying with this emotional eating issue is also hard, right? They're both hard. Choose your hard. Okay, I'll say it again. Working on emotional eating is hard. Staying an emotional eater is also hard, right? They're both hard. Which one will you pick, right? Choose your hard. Okay. And the next one is really my favorite. I don't know if it's a mantra, but it's like a very like logical thing to tell yourself. Okay, so you had an issue, you had a problem, right? Something stressed you out, somebody did something, whatever, you had a hard day. So you ate over it, right? So before you ate, you had one problem. Now you ate over it. Now you have two problems, right? You have your original problem because you didn't solve it by eating. And now you have a second problem, which is now you feel gross, disgusting. Why did I do that? Oh my God, here I go again, right? So you created two out of one, right? So in the future, think to yourself, how can I better handle this problem so that I end up with zero, or at least just the original one versus two? Okay. Okay. So just to wrap up, you can sign up for either one-on-one emotional eating or the online course. You can email me, Tanya at nutritionbytanya.com, and just specify which one you want. And if you mention code Zoom10, you could get 10% off either if you were on the Zoom. If you were registered for the Zoom and if you were on the Zoom, just mention code Zoom10 and you could get 10% off either one-on-one or as an online course if you sign up by October 1st. So that's it. Does anyone else have any last minute questions? Everyone's so quiet. And wow, everyone's camera is off. Okay. All right.
I would share something.
Okay, sure.
Yes, I wanted to say that I joined the full challenge, and before then I felt like I was an eating emotional mess for a few months, and I thought I would never get over it. And I felt like the food plan that you gave me was so incredible. It really completely shut off that emotional eating, and I just needed a map. I needed a direction.
Wow.
And I just wanted to share that anyone that part of this emotional eating, if you have the right food plan that gives you that time to eat the snack or eat the treat, you don't always feel like you have to run for it.
Yes.
So Tanya's program is really incredible.
Thank
Say
you.
that.
Thank you for sharing. So
Thank
that's what I meant earlier.
you.
That's
Well,
that's what I meant earlier when I said that sometimes people think they're emotional eaters, but they're not. They're just not on a proper food plan, and that's all they needed, like just a physical fix, not even emotional. Someone asked, can my husband take advantage of the 10% instead of me if he wants to? Yes, sure. Okay. So anybody change their mind about sharing anything? If I see a
Yes.
certain food, sorry, let me just read this
Can
question.
I ask a question?
Okay, go ahead, go ahead.
What can I do if I'm too tired to do anything besides eat?
That's a good question. Relax, like take a bath, lay down, stare into space, read a book, do a puzzle, watch something, right? Not like go cleaning or exercising, but something that's relaxing. And like I said, like you're rewriting the script because right now in your head it's like I'm tired, the only thing I could do is eat, but you'll realize I could rewrite the script and like I'm tired, I could do something else also.
Thank you.
Sure. What do you, oh, hold on, I skipped one. If I see a certain food at a kiddish and I'm dying to eat it, but I don't, and I control myself, but after that, I can't stop thinking of that food item, thinking I should have eaten it. Okay, I would love to know what it is because I'll tell you why, okay? Most of us live in Bar Park, Flatbush, Williamsburg, Crown Heights, Muncie, right? We could get anything, anytime, really. Like there's no food you're gonna tell me that you can't get on a Tuesday at 4 or on a Wednesday at 7, right? So I think it's like a FOMO perspective, like fear of missing out, right? Homemade cheesecake. Okay, who makes such good cheesecake that you're never gonna have it again? Like I'll give you an example. Like this man told me, a male client, that when he goes to his mother's house, he always like ends up like going off track because he eats her food, right? That she makes and he loves. So I thought he visits his mother like a few times a year or something. I'm like, where does your mother live? He's like, Queens. I'm like, but don't you live in Queens? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how often do you see your mother? He's like 2 to 3 times a week. So I said, so why do you have FOMO, fear of missing out? Like if you don't eat it this time, you could eat it next time. And if you don't eat it next time, you could eat it next time. So we have to just like get rid of this FOMO, of this fear of missing out, of like, oh my gosh, if not now, then never. If not now, then next time. That's consistent with the delay method also, right? Like it's not like I'm never gonna have it. I'm gonna have it a different time. Okay. Okay, is there an expiration date for the 10% off? Yes, just sign up by October 1st. You could start it after Yom Tov, but sign up by October 1st. What do you do if you see food and it makes you feel hungry and you need it? Well, it depends why. If you're physically hungry, then maybe you need to eat, right? But if you're physically hungry and you want cake, you're probably not physically hungry. And also like the delay method works wonders because when you walk away from it or when you go drink water or when you go do something else, you'll realize if you really are hungry or not, which often it's not. Why do I often find myself hungry? So it really could be that you're not on a good food plan. Because if you're on my food plan, and I'm not just saying it, I'm saying feedback that I get constantly. This is like the biggest feedback I get. People are like, I'm just never hungry because they're eating every few hours. They're drinking water. They have freebies that they can have. So if you're on a proper food plan, you're not hungry. But by the way, I will, of course, talk about Vitathin for a second. For those who don't know, we created Vitathin recently. It just came out about a month ago. It's basically like Ozempic in a vitamin with no side effects. Here it is, right here on my desk, Vitathin. So it really, really helps to suppress appetite and curb cravings. So if you find yourself constantly hungry and craving, I would definitely recommend it as a tool to assist you. Can the delay method just lead to an overeating episode later because of all the waiting? Never have I gotten that feedback ever, because it's not no, it's soon, right? Telling yourself no can lead to overeating, but telling yourself soon, does not lead to overeating. You're not deprived. You're just in charge. You just decide when to have it. It's not no, it's not now because I'm in charge. Okay, such good questions. Okay, awesome. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for taking the time out to come join. I know it's a busy time of year, and I appreciate everyone's time and being here. I hope it was informational and useful to you. If you have any feedback, email me, Tanya@nutritionbytanya.com. Also, if you don't yet follow my WhatsApp status, please WhatsApp me at 917-913-1523, 917-913-1523, and just ask me to save your number. I will, and you can follow my WhatsApp status. And again, use code Zoom10. You could get 10% off either one-on-one or as a online course if you sign up by October 1st. So I wish everyone a lot of hatzlacha, especially over the Yom Tov season. You can do it. It is doable. And thank you again for being here. Okay, good night, everyone.